everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. And we're really excited today. We sometimes have one of these movies that we enjoy so much, we decided to do a deeper dive than just our recap, monthly recap does. And that was the case with the recent Never Too Late to Celebrate, which is probably the worst part about it is the title is such a groaner. But the actual movie itself was very entertaining. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Mitu is here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
How are you doing?
Pretty solid. I had a really nice ugly cry this morning, so I am
Oh,
unlike Camila, where she does the pretty cry or cute cry, as Javi said. I did like an ugly tear up. I thought this movie was so beautiful. I'm
isn't
excited to
that
talk
so
about it.
sweet? Yeah, I mean, it's nice now we've given you a traditional Hallmark movie because we had you review the e-rom-coms, the PG-13 uh rom-coms and the mysteries, but now we got you for a rom-com, regular rom-com.
I know usually I really, really stick with the mysteries,
Yeah,
but of course, Hallmark Movies and Mysteries channel, it doesn't really make that many mysteries anymore.
I know.
And
It's
this
true.
one I was very interested to watch because
Hmm.
I really like when Alexa Panavega and Carlos Panavega team up.
Yeah, a lot of times married couples don't work that well in these movies
Yeah.
because I think the problem is that the comfort level that they have with each other, it kind of can translate as sort of bland and not that exciting to on the screen because you think, oh, they're gonna have amazing chemistry. They're a couple in real life, but it rarely works. But they've had quite a few that have worked. I particularly liked Love in the Limelight last year, and then now this. And I do like it when they are with other people as well, when they branch out, because there was one from Alexa in February that was pretty good. Paris Diamonds one that I liked pretty well. So they can both be good on their own, but they have had now two in a row together that were quite good. And I would say this one is was very sweet. I really enjoyed how their relationship grew and evolved. I really liked the ending. Overall, it really worked for me.
Completely agree. And yes, I think that's what's so remarkable or interesting about when they come together is because they're a married couple, is harder, to your point,
Hmm.
for the chemistry to translate. I think about that very funny story from maybe last year, or the year before, that when Idris Elba fired his daughter or didn't cast his actual daughter as his daughter in a movie because they didn't have the right chemistry.
Hmm.
And to me, I mean, maybe kind of a harsh move, but it kind of made sense because
Yeah.
when things are so set, you kind of take them for granted. And I felt like with these two, they really earned each other's
Hmm.
love and affection.
Yeah. Plus, I absolutely love that they created their own new last name. I think it is so cute. I've never heard anybody doing that before because, they took the Pena and they took the Vega and they made a whole new last name, which I just love that so much. And of course, they had like the perfect last names to do that and to
Yeah,
make it work. But I just think that's like so romantic and it's cute. I love that.
me too.
It's a way to go with the name. Carlos
Yeah.
and Alexa. Excuse me. All right, well, let's dive into this movie. The summary is a career focused dentist Camilla is reluctant to celebrate her 30th birthday, but inspired by Javi, a Spanish teacher, the two plan a quinceañera themed party to honor her Hispanic heritage. And this is directed by Felipe Rodriguez and written by John Bolina and Talia Gonzalez, who have both done one other project together, but it was a mystery. So it's kind of interesting. This is her first rom com. And it's, of course, stars the Penavegas, and overall, I mean, we already talked a little bit, but overall, what do you think about the movie?
I really liked it. I tend to enjoy the mysteries more because that is just more interesting to me usually.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like with the romantic comedies, and I say this carefully because I know the podcast I'm on, sometimes it's a little too formulaic for me. Like, we meet, we have this
Yeah.
surprising attraction, and then something happens and gets in the way, and then we'll figure it out when there's about like 12 minutes left in the movie.
Yeah, girl
And
from the
in
city going to the country and uh
exactly.
the
I
high
knew I
school
needed to
hunk.
give up my job, like, whatever
Yeah.
whatever the formula is. And the reason it works is because it works. Like, the reason this formula has been produced so many times is because it works. So,
Hmm.
it's just that sometimes, like, I feel like sometimes with some of these, if I've seen one, I've seen 10. But
Yeah.
with this one, I found myself, like, as if I did not know that they would end up together in the end, really on the edge of my seat.
Hmm.
And I know that you like to typically go through an order, but there's a part where we finally get like an initial kiss,
Hmm.
and then he pulls away and starts to mess up the relationship. And I
Yeah.
found myself actually upset. Like, in 20 minutes, this was not going to be resolved.
Yeah, it was so nice because so often you get a near kiss at that kind of thing, or you might get a kiss, but it's never really dealt with, almost never, as part of the plot.
Yes.
Is okay. This is like is it would even a near kiss, like if you almost kiss somebody in real life, like that would be like a big deal.
Mhm.
You would be like, okay, what's going on in our relationship? You wouldn't just like brush it off as if nothing happened. And so often that's the case with these movies. And I really loved the fact that his reticence like really factored into then her choices, which then added to the plot and made things more complicated. And so yeah, is a very well written, I think, script. And you can always tell when there's sort of new, fresh voices
Mhm.
writing these scripts. Like I said, they had done one previous mystery movie, but I think you can tell when there's sort of this a new voice, a new take on this formula, which is nice for the writers. And yeah, I liked also I thought the conflict was very well done. I have like a few little nitpicks, but for the most part, I felt like her trying to figure out kind of what she wants to do as far as, is she gonna take this partnership, opportunity, or is she gonna, go to Mexico, or what does she kind of want in his conflict? And I thought that worked really well.
I also really loved the story of her dad and how much that affects her.
Yeah.
I I think it's so interesting when you consider people who, let's say, one parent is from somewhere, one parent is from another place, so your identity, your connection to that identity is through one parent, but maybe not the other. And so in her case, her
Uh-huh.
father is Mexican American. No, I think he's from Mexico. He's
Yeah.
Mexican.
An
And
immigrant.
his mom, or her mom, is a white American woman.
Hmm.
And it is so interesting to me, the idea of trying to reconnect with your culture, but you are missing that parent that would have done that. And
Hmm.
it made me think of the book Crying in H Mart, which
Mm.
I still haven't read because I don't think I'm strong enough. My friend sent me a passage from it, and it tore me apart. And I was like, I
Yeah,
can't,
it is
I
a
can't do
crier.
this yet.
It's a
Uh,
crier. I've read it. I thought it was really good. But there's quite a bit of humor mixed in. I think you can handle it. I believe in you.
I will I'll try. The passage was about, like, basically how much of her culture comes through the author's mom and her mom's
Hmm.
cooking, and I think of how much
Yeah.
of my culture comes through my mom and my mom's cooking, and I was like, "I'll take a beat. I'll take a beat on reading this." But I would say the movie as
Yeah.
well that we're talking about has a lot of humor too. I found myself really entertained. It wasn't just,
Yeah.
like, sappy, or
Hmm.
though there's room for that. I love a good cry movie, but in this one, I
Yeah.
found myself laughing a lot.
Well, and he was so swoon worthy in this movie. The way he kept looking at her and like the way he was like was was great. He had that lingering look down perfectly.
Truly, shout out to Big Time Rush. You can ask my
Yeah.
co-host BJ, if you've listened to even one episode of the Pilot Podcast, you know that I don't really like musicals that much.
Uh-huh.
I was not annoyed by the singing at all.
No.
I loved it. It was so beautiful. And
Yeah.
there's a part where they're making food together in a restaurant and he sings a little bit, but then it gets cut off because she has an accident, like she accidentally
Uh-huh.
cuts her finger.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, could we just get back to the singing or oh, we're just totally done. We're just gonna take care of her
Yeah.
hand. Okay. Like it was just so good.
Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
It was very, very good. And I think that for the most part, her conflict of having not really been taught much about her culture, and so doing this quinceañera and connecting with her dad, and then also her Mexican roots, I think was very sweet and something I think probably a lot of immigrant children can relate with. I mean, I do think they pushed it a little too far sometimes with like, I just find it hard to believe that she wouldn't know what horchata is, or something. So I'm like, that's really common. Like in every gas station I've ever been to, there's a thing, horchata. And so I don't know. I feel like, come on, you had to have known about some of this, but I was willing to forgive that in the script because I thought for the most part it was really well done, and just her insecurities with kind of who she is and wanting to learn more, but also like being hesitant about it because of those wounds, they would open up.
Yeah, I actually thought, well, one, I was also surprised that she did not know horchata. I love horchata. I don't like
Yeah.
horchata lattes though. I like it by
Oh,
itself.
okay.
But I saw that they put it with coffee and that I tend to not like that.
Uh-huh.
But I thought that despite some of the like confusing things that they made her not aware of, I thought that they captured the essence of like that experience. Not that it's monolith, but they
Mm-hmm.
captured an essence of it really, really well. Of
Mm-hmm.
I know so many people, I am a child of immigrants, and I know so
Mm-hmm.
many people who, like, let's say you speak to them in their language, they'll understand it, but then they get tongue tied trying to speak in their own language back. And so I thought it was very lovely. There were moments when actually back to that scene in the restaurant where the family around her is speaking to her in Spanish, telling her like, what food to put together. And she's not pausing at all. She knows exactly what they're telling her to do and she's putting it
Mm-hmm.
together. But then when he asks her to tell them, this is the best mole I've ever had, or this is maybe the best thing I've ever tasted, she has trouble and she essentially lands at, this was really delicious. And I thought that, like, that scene for me, I feel like maybe it wouldn't feel very significant if you are not familiar with this experience, but for
Mm-hmm.
me, I thought, like, wow, somebody who has experienced this or witnessed this wrote this, and I really liked
Mm-hmm.
that. It very much resonated.
Because there's this desire to assimilate and be part of your new culture. But on the other hand, you also want to honor your roots. And I think it could be tricky. I mean, and I think a lot of it also, there's probably some racism and some other things involved that, if you're not seen as, if you're speaking a foreign language, people might, unfortunately, there might be judgment there, or um there, that you feel like you have to almost assimilate and become this new person, but then also you really want to, or a lot of them, really want to. And so it's interesting. I feel like I've heard it from other people I know that are immigrants or children of immigrants. They've experienced that feeling of like wanting to distance yourself from it, but then also wanting to keep it part of you.
Yeah, it's what do they call it? Like third culture kids.
Mm-hmm.
That's the term. Yeah,
Yeah.
it gets complex. But one thing I really loved is the maybe like C storyline. You're the film expert, you're the film critic of Sherry, her mom, taking the dance classes, so like embracing her culture, but also maybe like finding her own man, her own love in Raphael.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that.
Yeah, that was good. And also just her mom struggling with the idea of retiring or not. And I think with grief, like everybody has their own sort of timeline of what that process looks like. But making that decision to retire and not be able to sort of live the retirement that you thought you were going to be able to live with your spouse. Like the more you can put it off, the better it seems. I thought that was a pretty moving arc for that character as well.
Absolutely. The conversation she has with her daughter when she feels like she can't even, what did she say? She said she couldn't see it. She couldn't see experiencing retirement without her father because they made those plans together. That felt so heavy and so beautiful.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, it really did. So we have her showing up at the school, at her mom's school, and he's a substitute teacher there, and she sees him with the kids teaching Spanish, and it was very cute. And she starts to cry because she starts thinking about her dad, and she's like, I promise I'm not always like a faucet. I always cried all the time. He's it's very sweet. It's very sweet. Because there are definitely certain, I mean, I am public waterworks. I cry at everything. But there are definitely certain topics where if I was in a play, I would just think about certain topics. I could get it. I could get the tears. Like when I think about my grandfather, who I
Mm.
miss so much. He passed away in 2001. He's been gone a long, long time. But I still miss him every day. And whenever I think about him, I miss him. And so I think we all have those those things, and for her, it's definitely her father.
Yeah, it was very real. I
Hmm.
loved that. I loved that they started that way, and it felt like such a genuine beginning to their relationship because the way Javi reacted to it was not, oh,
Hmm.
yikes. It was
Yeah,
just immediately comfort, validate, grab a tissue. And I was like,
yeah.
well, there's a keeper right there.
I always love in these movies when our leading guy in particular is gone from the beginning. Like first look,
Yeah.
they're, they're gone,
Yeah.
and that was there. I mean, he had his issues as far as his ex and stuff, but pretty much from look one, he's like, you have a cute cry. Oh, that's cute.
I thought that was very, very sweet. It made me think of the Kim Kardashian sobbing meme where like
Oh yeah.
she and I am of this community too. She's an ugly crier. And so I just thought about how moving it is to call someone a cute crier, to say you have a cute cry. That's a big deal. I wrote that in all caps in my notes. A cute cry.
Mhm. Yeah, me too. It was endearing, very endearing for his character. And so they find out that she's never been to quinceanera, and that she never had one. And they talk about having this double quinceanera, and because she's turning 30, and a way to kind of pay tribute to her dad and everything. And you kind of wonder, I mean, why she didn't have one. I guess her dad was just so about assimilating that They didn't have one. My friend Emily, she's full Mexican, but I don't think had one because I think her parents, uh, I don't think she had one. So I guess not everybody has one, but it's a fun idea, and it's nice because I feel like this movie didn't get caught up in the minutia of this party planning. It was almost always about sort of the broader picture of like how this impacted her life. You didn't spend that much time worrying about what kind of tablecloths they were going to have or napkins or, that kind of thing.
No, just the dress, and they handled that perfectly.
Today's episode of the podcast is sponsored by W Rated, the podcast where we willingly watch the world's worst rated movies. Join me, Daisy.
And me, Claire, as we break down the IMDb Bottom 100, choosing a different film from the list every episode.
We take a deep dive into the plot, production, release, and reviews, usually with a special guest, to uncover if these films are truly as bad as everyone says they are.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple, Good Pods, and anywhere else you find your podcasts.
Yeah. And so because a lot of times party planning movies are the worst. They're really boring.
I can say as someone who, for a very brief stint at the beginning of my career, worked in events, it is the most tedious, boring work, and
Right.
it is the fastest way to get me to not be interested in watching something.
Me too, because most of the time it's stuff that just doesn't matter. Like it has no real like bearing on the characters and their journey, and so it's just like I don't care what kind of cake they have. Like so
Yeah.
you have to either like make it really funny or just don't include the scene at all. Like because I don't care. It doesn't matter to me or the character. But this pretty much almost everything was at the very least it was introducing her to her culture, and so it may have been trying tres leches or trying food for the event, but it was bigger than that because she was learning who she is.
Yes, and what she wants. It
Mhm.
feels like, which feels very real, that because of this grief, this overwhelming grief that she's had in her life, she has just been kind of going and
Mhm.
hasn't stopped to think like, okay, what does Camila want? And
Mhm.
so it feels like at 30, she is for the first time doing that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they go to his niece's quinceañera, and Izzy dances with her dad, and everybody thinks that Camilla is Javi's girlfriend, and I liked his family a lot. I thought they were really fun.
Is a great family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, particularly his brother. I thought I liked that actor, but everybody was really good. I liked when they're I forget what it is they're making, if it is the trust, but I always love it when they find like ridiculous reasons to get cozy together.
Yeah.
Lean over, just like extra close. And he's teaching her to dance. They're getting real close. It's fun.
I really liked, well, one, I think Izzy is a star.
Mm-hmm.
And then I really liked Javi's singing at the quinceañera,
Mm-hmm.
specifically because I thought that, rather, I think that sometimes when you have someone getting up and singing at a party in these movies, it pulls attention, but it didn't feel like it pulled attention for me. It made me like zero in even more on Izzy and her dance partner.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved that we learned the significance of I can't remember the name of the partner that you choose to do the dance with you. And it is less
Oh yeah.
for romance and more for the importance of the partnership. Like you are trusting this person to be with you
Mm-hmm.
as you like enter womanhood or whatever it is. And I just thought that was so beautiful. I really, really loved that scene. And yes, his family was just 10 out of 10.
Yeah, and I liked when they said, "Are we birthday schmoozing or birthday schmoozing?" That was funny.
Yes.
And he's like, I definitely didn't say you were cute. but they're out looking for a venue. She goes to dance class with the mom, and we see the teacher kind of flirting with the mom. And I said, clearly dancing is in your genes. Which was cute. And then they play this fortune teller game together. Like I said, the flirty fortune telling game. And then they dance, and there's an almost kiss there. And it was really good. Like all of those scenes really worked for me.
The fortune teller game, do you mean the exercise in the classroom?
The
When they like pulled cards and it was like,
yes.
I thought that was so smooth.
Yeah,
When she
yeah.
read it, and like, I mean, no matter what it said, she was like, you will go to the museum with me tomorrow. And she conjugated all those verbs to flirt. I was like,
Yeah.
I have to respect it.
Yeah, it was very clever. It was good. And so then we find out that the mom lied about saying there was this hiring freeze and not wanting to retire. And she says, I'm not sure who I am without him. And when I'm working, I know how to fill in my day. So that was very sweet.
It's very sweet.
Mm-hmm. And then he takes her to his brother's restaurant, and they have like tacos and stuff like that. And she finds out that her dad's favorite flower is a dahlia.
Mm-hmm.
So she's starting to learn and grow, and so that works. And he says, having people in your life and having fun doesn't diminish the love you had for dad. And so then the mom gets a little bit bolder and starts like really dancing with Raphael, with the guy. And it says, you added mucho spice to those moves. It's all about the connection. So Raphael is really interested in her mom. It's cute.
It was very, very cute. I actually, for a friend's bachelorette this March,
Mm-hmm.
went to Panama and took a salsa class, and it was so fun.
You for the bachelorette party was in
Mhm.
Panama?
Yes, and we did a salsa dancing class,
Nice.
and I think we learned mostly salsa, and I feel like they got a little bit into, I want to say bachata, and it was so fun. It was such a good time.
That does sound
And
like fun.
it's,
I am like the world's worst dancer. Like no false pride. Like
you could do it like Sherry. You can count your moves.
That's what I would have to do. Or if I can get away with just doing like sort of we call it the deacon shuffle here, but like
the kind of like sidestep side to
Yeah.
side. Yeah.
That's about the best. It really it makes it much harder for me to get any roles in musical theater. Not that I'm auditioning all the time, but I don't even try, because I have an okay voice, like a decent voice, but I am really bad, especially in those kind of like form dances.
Yeah.
It's bad. But
when I think about Sherry and Raphael, what excited me about them meeting through dance is you have to trust your dance partner so much. And so you let them lead you, and you have to like kind of anticipate where they're going by sensing changes in their movement. And so they have to be really in tune with each other. And so I really liked that for their connection. Mucho spice indeed.
Yeah. Well, and it's easy to bring in that sex appeal without doing anything outright, to make things sexy, but make it still G-rated. I think it helps. But she loves his family, and he's given her, I said, he gives her thirsty eyes really well.
Yes, he is so hot for a dentist. It was so sweet. I was like, man, this man is attracted to his wife.
Yeah, he really is. Yes. And so then I wrote down perfect kiss. I thought it was so well done. Beautiful. Really good. And so they have this great kiss, and then he gets scared, and he says, "I'm not ready for anything serious." And then she says, "Well, thanks for reminding me why I don't date."
Oof.
Yeah.
That hit me right in the chest. And what I loved about, well, love is a strong word because it was a tough seed. But what
Uh-huh.
I loved about the framing is he said, I'm scared. I'm coming out of a bad relationship. This person kind of messed me up and I'm not sure what I'm ready for. And, I'm scared of commitment and whatever it is. And I like that. I feel like in some of these movies, the phantom ex-girlfriend becomes a villain, right? Like,
Mhm,
oh,
mhm.
if Ashley hadn't have done that number, we would have been happy together and she's evil and she's this. And I
Right.
love the focus was that like Javi needs to grow.
Mhm,
And so maybe that person was bad, maybe that person was great. Obviously, no matter what, they were not good together. But I
mhm.
like that it wasn't like this evil woman. It was just like, no, this guy needs to heal. Like he needs to
Yeah.
figure himself out and then build himself up so that he can be with Camila.
Mhm. Well, and I also appreciate the conflict wasn't something like easily solved. Like, for instance, a lot
Yes.
of these have some kind of conflict of like, you live in New York City and I live in the small town. How can we ever work things out? Like that wouldn't stop anybody from falling in love. They would just you would figure it out. And and so it always kind of rings hollow that you would really give up the love of your life just so you could live in New York City or in this small town. No, you wouldn't. Nobody would. And but this it's more about being afraid of the relationship getting hurt again. And then when she takes the offer, it's like it's not just a place, it's a connecting with her dad, it's a dream of always going to Mexico. There's more to it than just this is where I live.
Yeah.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, Hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
There was a lot more significance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so her dress starts out, it's huge. But then they are able to bring it down and the roommate works on it. And the roommate I felt like seemed a lot older to me than Alexa. They were supposed to be like school chums, and to me, she seemed quite a bit older. But it was fine. But yeah, the dress is swallowing her at first.
It really cracked me up. It made me think of the reveal in Bridesmaids
Mm-hmm.
where Kristen Wiig looks up and Maya Rudolph is like, I don't know what happened. Like, sometimes these things just get away from us. And so
Yeah.
I like that her roommate was able to save the day. I agree. She felt more like a guiding figure than a peer,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm glad she was there with her sewing kit.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then she gets this offer to go to Mexico, and then he also gets an offer at the school. And so they think, okay, this is not gonna work out. But now once she gets the job offer, now all of a sudden he's like, I screwed this up. And I says, I tend to run away from everything. I'm scared. And and then says that I wish I had told you sooner. but she says, "Will you still be my Chamberlain?" Was the escort thing, which was really cute. And we get our party, and the dress ended up turning out really great. She looked
She looked
gorgeous.
stunning,
Mhm.
beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful.
And I really thought the movie was pretty well made for one of these. I felt like it was shot through like the cinematography, the colors. It was very warm and inviting. And for one of these kinds of movies, I thought that it was well made.
I agree. I loved that candle scene. I
Uh-huh.
love when people do
Yeah, that
things
was
like
nice.
that. I mean, I like that in movies. I like when I see that at weddings. I just love when someone lights a candle in someone's honor.
Mhm.
Just is the most beautiful thing to me. And her speech when she talks about I am 30, the identity of being 30 versus tengo 30 años. So like I have 30 years and the difference in those and what that means for her
Mhm.
and her experience with her father. And it just, that's when I cheered up. I thought that was
Mhm.
so beautiful because as you said, like the core story here for me was this journey of self-discovery. And so that speech for me felt like she had moved, leaps and bounds in
Mhm.
learning herself and being able to bring in Spanish as part of that self-discovery was just so beautiful.
Yeah, and when she lights his candle and she says, "Thanks to you, I can feel my dad all around us." That
Oh,
was very
my
sweet.
goodness. I
It was
could tear
great.
up right now. I won't, but I could.
And I know there's some people probably say, "Oh, this is unrealistic because this happens pretty fast, this relationship." But I feel like they spent a lot of time together, and with our ending, it's not like they got engaged or are getting married or something like that. They're just going to work together,
Yeah.
and can
He
pursue
said
their relationship. I was fine with the timeline.
he even said, "I'm gonna get to know you better." That was the
Yeah.
language he used,
Yeah.
which is great.
Uh, yeah.
And it's Hallmark, and it's a romance film. Like, I'm
Hmm.
sorry, but I think we're allowed to suspend disbelief a little bit.
Yeah, and sometimes when you know, and you do.
Yeah.
And I mean, my cousin, she got engaged, met her husband, got engaged in the matter of weeks, and then they got married like just a couple months later. I mean, it was very fast. And they're still married 25 years later. They're still married. So, you know, eh,
One of my friends is like that. We always joke that we both met our partners around the same time. And she and her husband got married within like 8 months or
uh-huh.
something of knowing each other. I mean,
Fast.
they're still together. They're so happy together. They have 2 absolutely beautiful children. One is like freakishly smart, like very, very cool kids.
Yeah.
And so we always laugh because she went that route and I'm just like vibing with my partner. We're like, we'll get married. But but
Hey,
I
as
love
as
that
long
because
as both people are
yeah,
happy,
she
then
knew and he knew and they got married. And
mhm.
it just is the most like beautiful thing when you know, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
For
exactly.
me, that meant like choosing to live in the same neighborhood in the city together. And for her, that meant building a family.
Yeah. Uh, and then she does this tribute to her dad. My dad is here with me no matter how old I am. And
Mm.
then they dance together, and this is when he says, "What if I told you I will come with you to Mexico?" It was good. And he's all talking, and she does the whole shut up and kiss me
Yeah.
thing. She's I love
I
that.
I am smiling ear to ear just thinking about it.
Mhm. Yeah,
Oh
and
my
then he
goodness.
gives her that bookmark kind of thing,
Yes,
reminder.
because he's the one who taught her what her dad meant when he essentially was saying, and then they lived happily ever after in
Mhm,
Spanish.
mhm.
And then when he goes, and this is just the beginning of our story. Oh, it's
Yeah,
beautiful.
it was great.
This is not our happily ever after. This is the beginning of our happy. Like, how lovely is that?
Yeah.
Javi.
Yeah. So yeah, this was very enjoyable. I think I'd give it like a pretty high score. I'd give it like a 4.25 out of 5 crowns, something like that, or 4.5.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go straight 5 out of 5. It
Yeah.
was just so beautiful to me.
Yeah, it was really good, well acted. The movie looked great. The party scene was very well done and lush, and it didn't feel like it was on the cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes these movies do.
Cardboard cutout people, none of
Yeah.
that.
Well,
We had
especially
real background actors.
yeah, especially with COVID, you had a lot of mannequins and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But we would love to hear what you think of this movie. If you enjoyed it as much as we did, would love to hear your thoughts if you're listening, in the comment section or on Twitter. And me too. How can people find you, your podcast, everything you do?
You can check out the Pilot Podcast, which reviews the pilot episodes of TV shows to answer your question. Should I watch this? At thepilotpodcast.com, and we're at the Pilot Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter.
Great. Yeah, it's a really fun podcast. You also check it out. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. Check that out. Also, make sure that you are following the podcast on social media at Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast. And if you are listening on iTunes to both of our podcasts, please leave your ratings and reviews 5 stars. That really helps us a lot. It helps people to find the podcast. It helps the algorithm. So check that out. And also, if you are listening on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Most of our YouTube viewers aren't subscribers. So if you're in that camp, please subscribe. It helps the algorithm a lot. And like the video as well. And then we also have our Patreon group, which is a lot of fun. You get a great bang for your buck. And in September, we're going to have our watch along with director Peter Benson is going to be joining us. And so that will be a great opportunity because he's also an actor. He's just done it all. And so that will be a very fun chance to get to ask questions and learn the behind the scenes of your favorite Hallmark movies. That you get as part of being a patron at any tier level. So please take a look at that. And then we also have the merch store where you can get tons of fun Hallmark inspired merch. So check that out. And thanks so much. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for suggesting we do this. And it was a lot of fun to talk about this really cute movie.
Thank you for having me.
Bye, everyone.